What's up, everybody? It's NFL draft season. If you've watched our draft coverage before, you know this is my favorite time of year. You know we get to flex our brain a little bit and actually show some good football analysis. And today, we're going to jump into my first mock draft of the season. We're going to be doing a bunch more of these. So please subscribe to this channel. If you want to see a bunch of draft coverage, actually, though, go to flurrysports.org. We got draft profiles up for a ton of people. You can see my first mock draft over there. Other mock drafts are going to go over there. A bunch of other draft coverage and analysis. So definitely go to flurrysports.org. But we don't need to waste any time. Let's jump straight into this mock draft. Okay, let's jump into this mock draft. We are going to be using the Pro Football Focus interface here, their mock draft simulator. Obviously, for those who know me, I'm not a huge fan of Pro Football Focus. I don't love their analysis, but I do like their interface for this draft. This mock draft stuff. So we will be using that. And I may stray a little bit away from the mock draft I just posted on flurrysports.org. There's a couple changes I already see that I would make, so I'm just going to do that. But we'll talk through all of these picks. We'll go pretty quickly. And this is the first mock draft that we're posting here. So we are not going to be doing any trades. We know there's going to be trades, right? But we're not going to project them today, at least. We know the Eagles are for sure going to move up from 23. Maybe I'll talk through some spots where I think there could be some trades, but for the most part, we're just going to draft where people are currently sitting, and we'll just be making quick selections, quick analysis for all 32. Let's start. We know who number one's going to be. I would argue that it would be better for the Raiders not to draft Fernando Mendoza. I think he's a fine prospect. I think he's a pretty good player, but signing Kirk Cousins to a team-friendly deal, a deal that lets them keep him around for multiple years. It seems like they could trade down, get a bunch of stuff, more offensive linemen, more weapons, more all of that, position themselves to be a better team for next year, maybe even get some draft picks for next year, and then draft a quarterback next year, and then still have Kirk Cousins under roster if you want him. I feel like that's a better way to go, but I understand draft Fernando Mendoza, let him sit for half the season, and then he's starting. I get it. It's fine. Let Kirk Cousins get hit a bunch, whatever. Number two, it feels like this is a lock as well. Like Arvell Reese is going to go here. He's a pretty versatile defender. He's a great player, outstanding player. He may not be the best linebacker in the draft. He may not be the best linebacker in the draft from Ohio State. I think Sonny Styles is really good, but Arvell Reese is an outstanding player. Jets need a lot of stuff. They need a lot of everything. So getting a player who's very versatile like Arvell Reese, I think makes a lot of sense. Now at 3 is where it gets interesting. I think the only guarantee is that the Cardinals do not go Jeremiah Love. I think they have about 15 or 16 running backs on roster is what it feels like at the current moment. Maybe blowing that out of proportion a tiny bit, but honestly, not that much. So they're not going to go Love. I've seen some people say that they will be the first team to draft an offensive lineman. They could go tackle. They do need offensive lineman, I suppose, but their offensive line isn't that bad. I think they will wait to do that. So I think they're going to go defensive side of the ball. And they could go edge rusher. They could go Sonny Styles. I think Sonny Styles is very, very good. I think they go edge rusher, though, just looking at the division. Like, you got some really good offensive lines. You got some quarterbacks who definitely need pressure on them. If you can't get pressure on Stafford, on Darnold, on Brock Purdy, like, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So I think they go edge rusher, and I think they go David Bailey. He is the edge rusher with probably the most potential. He is not the most pro ready, I don't think, but I think he does have a very high ceiling, and I think that's where they go there. Okay, number 4, and here's the thing. I understand how Sonny Styles makes a lot of sense. I get it. I think that makes a ton of sense to get Salah, a linebacker like that. I think he fits the Salah scheme. I think all of that makes sense. Here's the thing. When has Salah ever had a say in any room that he's ever been in? The dude has 18 kids. He didn't have a say about that, I assume. He lived in a hotel room with all 18 kids. Didn't have a say about that. When he went to the Jets, they drafted Zach Wilson, his first pick. I think they went back-to-back offensive players. So He hasn't had a say anywhere he's gone. He didn't have a say in San Francisco. He's not going to have a say here. So yes, I think he would like for the team to draft Sonny Styles. I don't think that's going to happen. So I think the Titans are going to continue to build up the offense. They want to get a good offense around Cam Ward. And I think they are still chasing that Derrick Henry dragon. Like they want to have that great running back. They want to make up for the sins of the past. And I think they're going to go Jeremiah Love, which again isn't a draft pick that you would be like, hey, that's a bad pick. I don't think anyone would say Jeremiah Love's a bad pick, but I don't love drafting running backs to bad football teams, and that may be what the Titans are. Here we go. So I could stray away from what my mock draft said, but I do think I'm going to stick with it. Should I? Yeah, I'm going to stick with it because I want to explain my reasoning. Now, I think Sonny Styles absolutely could be drafted here, and I think he fills a need, and I think it makes a ton of sense. I think the Giants could trade back as well. I think someone could trade up, see Sonny Styles on the board, go get him. I also think there's a third scenario, and I think that's Caleb Downs, who I think is probably the best player in this draft. Maybe the best defensive player in the draft, maybe the best. I don't know. He's just very, very, very good. He's versatile. And in my opinion, he could be a little bit of a Kyle Hamilton-like role on Harbaugh's defense. Harbaugh, obviously a special teams guy, but Harbaugh had a lot of say over the defense in Baltimore. He was a reason for a lot of the firings and all of that in Baltimore. And I think he's going to have a lot of say in the defense yet again. So for this, I'm going to go Caleb Downs. Could we see Caleb Downs, fall to 8, 9, 10? Yes. But yeah, we're going to go Caleb Downs. Browns are left with a predicament. They certainly do not need a linebacker, so they're not going to go Sonny Styles. If they were presented with this board, again, I think they would have pressure to trade back. So I think they could definitely do so, and the team could draft Sonny Styles, whoever trades up. I'm going to go with them taking a pick, and I'm going to go with them going offensive line before wide receiver. That's the debate, right? Do they go Carnell Tate, or do they go offensive lineman? Spencer Fano is probably the more true tackle of the top two offensive line prospects. But I think they're going to go Mawigawa, who is very, very, very good. I'm always one who screams about how offensive tackle prospects who need to play guard and stuff like that. Like I'm pretty darn accurate with that. For those who don't know, just go back and look at any of my analysis of years past. Obviously, my background's in offensive line, and Mawigawa doesn't have the length, right? What's he, 6'5"? 6'6". He's a little bit stubby. He's a little bit built like a guard. He could certainly thrive at guard, but I think he's fine at tackle too. I think he's good enough to play tackle, and I think he'll play tackle for the Cleveland Browns. Washington. Now, Washington has Terry McLaurin and nobody else to throw to. I guess Chig Okonkwo. I think they go wide receiver or they go edge rusher. And they need a little bit of both. Ruben Bain would be my pick here for edge rusher. And I think he makes a lot of sense. I don't think they go linebacker, but Bain is really good at stopping the run. He's a strong guy on the edge. I think he's very solid in that. But at the end of the day, they need somebody to throw to. They need to give Jaden Daniels a chance for success here. So I think they're going to go Carnell Tate. Saints, I think, would go Tate if he was on the board. Instead, I'm going to give them Sonny Styles. He finally goes off the board there. Saints need a little bit of everything, so I don't think there's a bad option there. Chiefs are projected several positions across the industry. Like everyone wants to project the Chiefs to take a wide receiver, and they could. That makes sense. They love their weapons, right? They need another edge rusher to go next to Karlaftis. I think that makes sense. But they also got rid of their top two cornerbacks, and I would be very surprised if they didn't leave the first round with a cornerback. I think they go with Delaney or Delane. A little spoiler alert, not a spoiler alert. I can't remember. I don't know the term, but I'm going to mispronounce almost everybody's name in this video, just so you know. I don't really pay attention to names. I'm more of a number guy when I watch films. So Delaney, Delane, I don't know. he's a chief. He's a good man coverage cornerback, and if he can lock up his man, then Spags can do a lot of other things with coverages and blitzes and stuff like that. I think that makes a ton of sense there. Bengals now are on the clock, and the Bengals need a lot of everything on defense, and they still need an offensive lineman. They could use some people are saying that they're going to go with a tight end. That would be the most Bengals pick of all time. Like, hey, we need to improve the offensive line. We need to improve the defense. What if we add another weapon for Joe Burrow to throw to, right? Um, I can't in good faith project that, but they do need edge rushers, obviously, after the Trey Hendrickson situation. He is still a free agent. He still could go back to Cincinnati. But in this case, I think they're going to go with Ruben Bain, who I think is an absolute man on the edge, very strong, and could absolutely thrive in a AFC North that is very physical, right? I think he fits in rather well there. Miami Dolphins now have Devon Achane as their only weapon, really, on offense. They need offensive linemen desperately. This is a absolutely disgusting offensive line. They need help. They need help. Do they go offensive line or do they go wide receiver or do they go tight end? I don't think you could go wrong. And that is why I think this is certainly a great place for somebody to trade up. Either Miami or Baltimore. I could see Philadelphia trading up and drafting Kenyon Sadiq. I really do. That just feels like a Philadelphia move. Obviously, Philadelphia could use a tackle as well. But boy, that feels like a Philadelphia move. In this case, though, I mean, the Dolphins need a tight end. They need a receiver. They need somebody to throw to. They no longer have Waddle. They no longer have Tyreek. Are they going to rely on Darren Waller to be that guy? I don't know. But they do want to be a run-first team anyway. Sadiq can block a little bit, and he's an absolute freak in terms of athletically. You know, he looks like he's built in the lab for 2026 football. I'm going to go with Kenyon Sadiq at pick number 11. He's the number 2 receiver off the board for me. Now, Dallas is on the clock. Dallas needs a few things. After that defense last year, I would be shocked if they don't go defense, probably with both of their picks. They pick at 20. They got the Packers pick. It feels like the most Cowboys move to draft Jermon McCoy, who's great. He's a very good player. He's just injury prone. Or not, that's not even fair. We just haven't seen him in forever. He didn't play all last year because of an injury. He had a knee injury. So it feels like a very Cowboys move to be like, hey, our doctors know best. We feel like we're getting a great value for this guy. We know something other people don't, and then it blows up in their face, right? So I'm going to go with McCoy there, and they're just hoping to get the best version of him, and they might. He's a very good player. Rams on the clock. Rams are a team, I guess, along with the Ravens. Like, the Eagles could certainly trade up to the Rams at 13. Rams very willing to trade back or trade their first round pick for a player or something like that, right? But if they're on the clock here, it would be absolutely foolish for them not to go offensive tackle. So we're going to go with Fano. He's outstanding, coming from a run first offense, but can do absolutely anything you want him to do. He's going to be a solid starter for 10 plus years. They could go Makai Lemon as well, but I do think they're going to go Fano. And then the Ravens are on the clock again. Ravens could absolutely trade this. They could trade back and then draft their center a little bit later on. But if you're looking at this, like, here's the thing. Everyone's saying Ravens need to go offensive line, and it's true. They need offensive line. But you know what also happened this offseason? They traded for Max Crosby and pulled out of the deal. This is a team that had no pass rush last year, and they still have no pass rush. They are going to get an edge rusher, right? Like, to me, it feels like they should be going after an edge rusher. I think the best available on the board at the current moment is Keldrick Folk. So I'm going to go with him. I think the Ravens skip offensive line and take an edge rusher, or I think they trade back into the first round and take an offensive lineman then. Presented with this, Todd Bowles is looking rough in that coach's photo. You know, he is hanging on for, he's on his last leg. Like, if they don't have success, Todd Bowles is going to get fired. I think he needs someone who is very pro ready, someone who needs to go right now. Mesidor's a solid player. He's old. What's he, 25? Yeah, 25. He needs someone who's pro ready. People are knocking him because of his age, but Todd Bowles looks at him and says, hey, he's good to go. We don't care about the future. We need to win right now. Otherwise, there's no future for me anyway. So I think he takes him. Jets on the clock, Jets at 16. I think the Jets are going to go wide receiver if presented this situation. In my mock draft that I wrote, I had them going with Jordan Tyson. And I do think a lot of teams have Jordan Tyson and Mekhi Lemon flipped. Depending, their order is different depending on who you ask, depending on what they need. I said in my mock draft, I believe the Jets were going to draft a bust. I just feel in my heart they're going to draft a receiver that's not going to pan out. And I thought, who is most likely to not pan out? I think both of these players are good. I think Jordan Tyson, the obvious situation, if his NFL career does not pan out, at least at his first stop, it's probably because of injuries. He's a little bit injury prone and he plays very physically, which, you play physically and you have injuries, going to lead to more injuries. So for that reason, and you may knock my analysis because that's not real analysis, I fully are on board with you with that notion. But I'm going to go Jordan Tyson here. Lions need an offensive lineman. In fact, I think they need 4. They need wherever Penei Sewell is not. If presented this, boy, I'm the biggest Penei Sewell fan you'll find. On draft night, you can go back and find the Flurry Sports stream. I said they drafted a Hall of Famer. I don't budge from that thought. If you can have Penei Sewell next to Ione, Vega Ione, that's scary. That is scary, and I think that's what they're going to do. Vikings, no Harrison Smith. I think they go safety. Top on the board here, at least according to Pro Football Focus, is LINEMEN, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Panthers. Some people think Kenny and Sadiq could last until here, and if so, I think that makes sense. I think the Panthers could take him. Mekhi Lemon's here. I think they could absolutely take him. They could go with an offensive tackle. I think all of that makes sense. They need a little bit of everything. I do think they go offensive tackle. They've been playing a very physical style of football, and they want to continue to do so. They're not going to be a team that throws the ball all around. They need to be a team that is run first, controls the clock, makes games ugly, and I think Monroe Freeling can do that. Cowboys with their second pick. Remember, we went with them going Jermod McCoy earlier. I think they go CJ Allen next. They just need to keep stacking defensive players to hopefully put a respectable product on the field. Easier said than done for Dallas, for sure. Now Steelers, man. Steelers need a little bit of everything on offense as well, in my opinion, but it hasn't really been the case recently, I suppose. But remember that time where the Steelers just could not miss at wide receiver? If they drafted a wide receiver, it's like, hey, they are getting a stud. We know they're going to either develop them into a great player or they're already a great player. And, if this board presents itself, Mekhi Lemon certainly feels like that type of player, and it's a player that the Steelers absolutely need. And they absolutely need this type of player in their offense. And, maybe the Steelers get aggressive and go after him a little bit earlier in the draft. I'm not sure. But if presented that, Steelers would be absolute fools not to take him. Chargers. Chargers do need some guard help. They need offensive line help, and especially with the way that offensive line has held up, I would say. And Justin Herbert, he's seemingly always banged up. I do think they go guard. I think they go Emmanuel Pregnon. I think he's the best guard available at the current moment here. Could they trade back and get him, end of the first round, early second round? I think that is very possible. This could be a spot somebody trades up to draft Ty Simpson, maybe. It feels like it would be surprising if 2 quarterbacks did not go in the first round. But yeah, at the moment, we're having them stay put, and we'll go with the guard out of Oregon there. Eagles, stay patient, something they never ever do. But in Zach Bruner's mock draft on today, April 8th, were saying they have to, but they stayed patient. They get to draft what they want. I think they're going to go with offensive tackle, but which one? So Lomu makes a lot of sense to me. I think he's a very, very good player coming from a run first scheme. I think he could develop possibly better than some of these other guys. Blake Miller, a little older prospect. I think he's very solid, though. Can get pushed around a little bit too much for my liking, and I assume Philadelphia's liking as well. And Proctor is kind of raw. I think Proctor, with the O-line coach that the Eagles have in the system there, like this is a guy they could make into an absolute monster. I think he makes a ton of sense for Philadelphia. But if they want someone who can play right away, if they want someone who can go right now, I think Lomu's that guy. So I think that's what they do. Browns back on the clock. The Browns went with offensive line earlier. First offensive lineman off the board. They went with the tackle. Could be a guard. They could say, hey, Maui Goa, you're a guard, draft Blake Miller or something like that. That would be interesting. I don't think they do that, though. I think they stay patient. They go offensive lineman first, and then I think they go wide receiver next. So it's between Denzel Boston and Omar Cooper Jr. for me, and I think I like Denzel Boston a little bit more, so I'll say the Browns do as well. Chicago now. Chicago's built a very, very, very solid team, but they could use a defensive lineman, somebody big in the middle. I think Caden McDonald makes a lot of sense. He can be a space eater and just wreck shop. What's he, 6'3", 326? Yeah. I think he's a very solid player, explosive right away off the first step, and playing in a physical division, right? Packers want to run the ball at you. Lions want to run the ball at you. Vikings, given the quarterback situation, they may try to be as physical as possible up front and set up the pass and play action. If that's the case, Bears know they need to stop that, or at least on the road to the Super Bowl, they're going to have to go through either Philadelphia, they'll have to go through the Rams, they'll have to go through Seattle, they'll have to go through San Francisco. So they need run stoppers up front at some point anyway. Bills on the clock now. Feels like Bills are still going to try to go after a wide receiver. They're just trying and trying and trying. In my opinion, that's what they do because they want that precious fifth-year option as well. Could they go safety? Yes. But I do think they go wide receiver for whatever reason. I don't know. I think Omar Cooper is very solid. Like, I don't think Omar Cooper is going to miss. So, with that being said, I think they go Concepcion. Like, I think they miss. Like, I don't think the Bills draft a good wide receiver. I think that's what they do there. Not that I think he's a bad wide receiver. I just don't think he's going to pan out in terms of being a first-round talent. And now the 49ers, they can be a little bit more patient at offensive tackle. I think they want to draft Proctor, develop him into being that replacement for Trent Williams. Houston now is on the clock. Houston needs a defensive lineman pretty bad. Says they need a running back. I don't think so. I think they need a defensive lineman. I'm going to go with Caleb Banks. Again, talk about a big dude. Caleb Banks is a monster. Quick first step, powerful guy, 6'6", 330. He can be a space eater there. Good luck, Jonathan Taylor trying to run up the middle. Good luck, Jeremiah Love now in the division. Like, Caleb Banks is a monster. He's a monster. Kansas City Chiefs now. And Kansas City Chiefs, could they go Amari Cooper Jr.? Absolutely. Could they go another cornerback? I think that makes a lot of sense too. I think they go offensive tackle. Like, we need to stop pretending that they solved their offensive line issues. They need a tackle. They need to figure out their offensive line because guess what? Patrick Mahomes is coming off a season-ending knee injury now, and he's not getting any younger. This offensive line's not getting any better, and they need to draft a tackle. So, Blake Miller. Do we got anybody else? I projected Miller in my previous mock draft. Ian Archer. Jesus, that demolished that pronunciation. Knocker? Don't know. Blake Miller. How about that? Miami is back on the clock. They need offensive line, and they're going to go with this guy that Mike Vrabel was bodying at their pro day, at the Arizona State Pro Day. Give me a pronunciation. Somebody help me out. in the comments. Somebody help me out in their draft kit. Somebody help me out somewhere. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Max I is going to go there. New England is an interesting case. They absolutely could draft Omar Cooper Jr. They could go with a defensive lineman. They could go with an edge rusher. In my mock draft, I projected Zion Young to go there. Big dude. A lot of big edge rushers in this draft, 6'5", 262. I think he could be a phenomenal piece there. What I am going to do now, I'm going to do a little audible and a little pivot from my mock draft I did previously. I do think they're going to go Omar Cooper Jr. if he presented this. They do need to surround Drake May with some better weapons, and I think that's a big win there. And then the Seattle needs a little bit of help at cornerback. I think they're going to end the first round with Avion Terrell. Let's go through this first round. I think this is a solid first round. I understand a lot of people are like, hey, this first round, this draft class sucks. Next year is going to be so much better. And I will say the skill positions next year are way better. You're absolutely correct. However, this is a very good draft class. Let's not make any mistake about it. You know why people are saying that this is a bad draft class? Because no one knows anything about offensive line play and people don't want to talk about offensive linemen. This offensive line class are fucking dogs. These guys are so good. And in an NFL that is desperate for an offensive tackle to come out, yeah, like there's almost always offensive tackles that should be guards coming into the draft class. We got 4 or 5 tackles, man. We got some very good offensive linemen. We got some very good, huge defensive edges. I was going to say defensive linemen, I guess, or defensive ends, whatever we're calling these guys now, edge rushers. We got some massive guys there, and we got some solid receivers. We got some solid tight ends. Only one went in the first round of my mock. Yes, the wide receivers overall don't have that top value. Yes, the quarterbacks aren't great. But offensive line, defensive line, the trenches in this draft, people are going to get a lot better. But quick recap, we got Mendoza, Reese, Bailey for the top 3 picks. We went with Jeremiah Love going to Tennessee. Caleb Downs playing that Kyle Hamilton role for the Giants under Harbaugh. Moigoa, I just realized I'm going to have to pronounce all these people's names. I already committed to it, so let's keep going. But yeah, we got the Browns taking the first offensive lineman. We got back-to-back Ohio State guys. We got Carnell Tate, Sonny Styles to the Commanders and the Saints, respectively. Chiefs get their cornerback 1 in Delaney. We got Reuben Bain Jr. Filling the edge role for Cincinnati. They're going to love that 5th-year option for him. Kenyon Sadiq is playing that wide receiver, probably move tight end role, essentially, for the Miami Dolphins there. Jermon McCoy coming off of a bad injury. Dallas Cowboys rolling the dice there. We got Fano going to the Rams. We got Falk and Mesidor, 2 big edge rushers, 14 and 15. Jordan Tyson is the second wide receiver off the board in my mock to the Jets. We got Iaone. I do know how to say his name. Vega to the Lions. Him next to Sewell. I can't say it enough. He's my favorite offensive lineman in this draft, by the way. Him and Sewell together, disgusting. So maybe him being at 17 is more wishful thinking for me just because I want to see those two play together. But boy, nasty. Teneman is the new safety for the Vikings. We got Freeling at the Panthers, keeping that physical offensive line up front. We got CJ Allen to Dallas. Mekhi Lemon is the 3rd wide receiver off the board to the Steelers. And then we got a couple offensive linemen. Boston goes to Cleveland. We got McDonald as the first interior defensive lineman off the board to the Bears. And you can see the rest. But that's what we got for today. Definitely subscribe because we're going to have a lot more draft coverage coming up. In the description below, and I think in the title, YouTube's changing shit all the time. But you see the new fantasy football channel for Flurry Sports. Definitely go over there and subscribe because especially after the draft, I'm going to be posting all types of shit over there. It's going to be all good stuff over there. Lots of uploads over there. And during fantasy football season, we'll still be doing our live streams here, but the videos are going over there. So definitely go and subscribe right now. Comment what you think of the mock draft. Comment who you want your team to pick. and I'm going to see you soon. Goodbye.